Will Northcutt and Gretchen Vogel, everybody, thank you so much. Well, good morning. Delighted to see you all here today. I'm happy to be here. My talk is called Deep Inner Strength. Now, I've been focusing, maybe you have too, on this season for nonviolence, this season for intentional peace. And I think really in the face of any kind of an attack or an abuse or any kind of maltreatment, peace really summons a deep inner strength. To be peaceful in the midst of that really takes something, a strength of mind, a strength of being. Now each week I've been giving you a little something to try, and actually each day in addition on Facebook. But last week I suggested that you listen as an equal, that you speak to one another as equals, and that you try to enrich your life by inviting different people and different experiences into your life. And this week, and this is the final week we're looking at this stuff, the season for intentional peace, my suggestion is that you choose to meet each experience with peace, that you calm any feelings of anger or irritation, that you transform unrest into safe havens for all people, and that you see beyond the conflict, the discord, to a peace that is everywhere present and active. So that's the final little homework assignment for you. And there's a word for each day, and the words for this week are intervention, interesting one, witnessing, peace, commitment, release, and celebration. So, as I mentioned, please visit our Facebook page early and often, share and comment about your process, and keep up all the good work, keep up all the God work. Well, Jamie Lula has a wonderful song, and the chorus is, "Something's calling me a little deeper than I've ever been before." So when deep calls on deep, a little jargony here, when deep calls on deep, deep responds with yes. Now, I got to admit, nursing a broken heart or going through some kind of emotional turmoil may not be the best time for you to go dashing straight at spiritual growth. And, it's often during those times that I make a deliberate choice not to make important decisions. So if I'm in the heat of something that may not be all that clear, and I know also from my experience that it's best for me to take a breath and wait and pause. One of the best examples is the worst time to start a new relationship is right after you've ended the one you're in. Those rebound relationships tend to be the same kind of dysfunctional, unhealed relationship, only with a different person. It's the second verse, same as the first, only louder. And but something deep within and about you is changing, and that's why there is the heartache, the heartbreak, the emotional turmoil. Something's really shifting. And the story that you're telling yourself, and the story that I tell myself, really at that point, when you're in the emotional part of this, the story is about the events in your life. And it's kind of surface layer at that point. I know it is for me, because I'm just trying to reality check myself. Did I do this? Did they say that? Whatever it might be. And this is basic science of mind 101. It's cause and effect. I'm exploring the cause of my heartbreak. I'm exploring the cause of whatever my emotional upset might be. And it could be something or someone. It could be something I did, something I said, something I heard. And noticing those cause and effect pairs, that's an important step. That's an important piece for real healing and real growth. And even if it starts at that surface layer, which is way at the end of a bunch of chain of events, that's the best and really only place to start. And I got to admit, there's times where I get really so knocked off my pegs that I'm not clearly discerning causes that have contributed to whatever it is that's going on. I am usually involved in some good old low-minded judging and blaming. And that's also an important piece to know about myself. once those waves pass, and there might be many, I'm more able to start to unravel what this long cause and effect process has led to. And the process of identifying causes is a first step, and it's a first step in healing. It's a first step in correcting course. It's a first step in making amends. It's a first step in atoning and forgiving. You know, Gandhi said, strength does not come from a physical capacity. It comes from an indomitable will, Yet, you know, when I'm in that kind of state, it feels really physical, all right? So there is a physical capacity associated with that indomitable will, I must say. And it's not just one cause and one effect, but a cause to an effect, and that effect sets up the next thing that transforms into a cause, and so on. And this is what the Buddhists refer to as a chain of causation. And they have this very elaborate system of the 12-link chain of causation, which, you know, if we had about 3 or 4 talks in a row, we could tackle that. But just know that it's not just one cause to one effect. It's one cause to an effect that was now a cause to the next effect, which is a cause to the next effect. So while you're in the midst of the healing or challenge, you might only be able to notice that, you know, that previous cause to that previous effect and maybe one behind that. But as you heal, as you recover, as you harness the full measure of your experience, you start to notice the other bigger causes, the deeper issues. And that process is able to lead you back to some root, what we would call radical causes, in this case, radical meaning root. And that's where you choose differently. That's where you ultimately correct the course of your life. Now, even though I might feel the most recent choice was the cause of my current predicament, I stay with that intention to heal. I stay with that intention to grow in consciousness. Because I got to tell you, usually when you're just stepping back 1 or 2 causes, you haven't, at least for me, got to the heart of the matter, got to the root of the matter. So it's in staying with that process that leads to the beliefs that no longer serve, that leads to a series of choices that I made that have led to this heartache, this turmoil, this challenge. Now, as an example, I mean, one of the most common patterns we find, at least I've found in the West, is around physical health and well-being and healing. So often folks, they have some kind of a symptom, and they go to a doctor, and they just give themselves, which is an important first step, yes, but they give themselves over to the doctor and the pill, and it sort of heals things. But it's that minor symptomatic relief of what's really a deeper existential pain, right? So the better approach is to do this more whole, more spiritually based. So it starts with my health and well-being is in and of God. My health and well-being is in and of God. And if I'm feeling bad, if I have some malady, some affliction, some symptom, it's that I've forgotten that my health and well-being is in and of God, that my health and well-being does not come through this doctor or this medication on its own. It's part of my healing, and it's part of my remembering that my health and well-being is in and of God. They're now included in that bigger spiritual picture. So that's the example. So the complete healing is a function of the complete vision, that God's ability to correct course is everywhere and within, that those healing agencies and elixirs circulate through my consciousness, through the doctor, through the medication, through all those healers and caregivers, that all those spiritual currents conspire, converge, collaborate, converge on my fuller expression and experience of health and well-being. So it's all coming together. It's all involved in this God activity. And usually the very center within your being that feels that pain or that strain is also the center that directs. It is that wellspring, it is that guide for deep healing and growth. And that is usually the heart. Now, as you might guess, the science of mind has a little bit different picture of heart in the same way that mind in the science of mind means something different than brain, right? So remember that mind refers to all of those sensing and formative systems in your body. It is your brain, it is your thoughts, it is your ideas, it is your words. It's also your intuition. It's also your inklings, those things that sort of pull and guide you and inform you. So that's mind. And heart in the science of mind refers to what is called divine love. And this means that this is the aspect of your being that is compassionate, that has empathy, that conveys that energetic information to your mind to be processed, healed, shifted, and transformed. So often the hurt is the same portal through which the shift in consciousness comes, right? So heartache is channeling a heart-oriented shift in consciousness. And as that feeling sensing center shifts, whatever it might be, wherever you localize it in your body, as that shifts, it moves from hurting to healing. It moves from a heaviness to a weightlessness. It moves from a darkness to light. So often folks seek the healing of heartache anywhere but in the heart. They'll do anything and everything other than allow that associated hurt to transform and to heal. I don't know what I'm speaking about here, but I've done that all the time. I don't want to heal my heart. That's where it really hurts. I'll do anything else but that. But you stay with your process. And the way you stay with your process is by keeping up your spiritual practices, whatever they might be. So it might be that you can only muster a little meditation or affirmation or prayer or journaling or study or visioning or counseling or tithing or service or beloved community. But you keep going. You keep moving with it. And it might be a real effort during deep pain, but even those slight attempts make a huge positive difference. At least they have for me. It also might mean that you're modifying your spiritual practice, or you're picking up a spiritual practice that you haven't utilized in a while. So you might hit a skid in your life and you start to journal about it, whereas you're normally not a journaling person. So while you're in the midst of that challenging, the vision, your visioning might be, and I think this is an interesting thing, dear God, what is the high idea in the midst of this pain and apparent darkness? And I think that's a fair question to ask. God, what is the high idea in the midst of whatever this despair, this darkness, this disconnect is? And then what must I release and what must I embrace in order to fulfill this high idea, to bring this vision, this higher idea into fruition, into activation in my life? Now, what I've proven to myself with the science of mind teaching, and that's the science part of the science of mind, that you take these basic principles and practices and you prove to yourself that they're true. You don't take my word for it or anyone else's word for it. You apply them to your life and you bring about those profound shifts, and that therefore you prove what others have proven for themselves. So I have proven that this that it is during this deep and meaningful stuff that transformation summons this extraordinary deep inner strength. Strength I didn't even know that I had. So it is that deep that's calling on the deep, and that deep within is responding with, here's the energy, here's the answer, here's the information, here's the shift in consciousness. The deep always comes up if you dig for it, if you call on it. And it's sometimes during those deep moments where you break open and you're kind of really raw and vulnerable. And you're raw and vulnerable to this divine presence like you never have before. You really connect to God, feel it within you in a way that you never had before. In this instance, you are speaking truth to your power. It is your Beetlejuice moment, really it is. And your power is the power of living spirit, of you living spirit and spirit living you. That's what's happening when you call that deep. So if you're anything like me, when I'm totally caught up in the appearance of these earth plane humanville illusions, people talk about being faint of heart, that they lack a courage, they lack a strength, and that this is holding back, this is weighing down. It is in that point, the faint of heart, where you are most able to make the specific shift in consciousness to transform that faint of heartness into a powerful inner strength, a powerful inner yearning. William Arthur Ward said, "The pessimist complains about the wind, the optimist expects the wind to change, and the realist adjusts the sails." And Dolly Parton put it in her own folksy way, says, "You cannot change the wind, but you can adjust your sails." And I think that's the important piece when you're in the midst of any of this kind of challenge. It's really a time to harness that energy to adjust the sails. And you might feel, like they say in sailing, that you're tacking, meaning you're trying to sail into the wind. But it is possible as you continue to adjust your sails. So as you take those steps to reveal your greater good, you adjust your sails, your heart declares the divinity of your soul. That's heart in the science of mind sense. And that heart moves decisively to a true liberation, to a joy of a more fully conscious life. And this is one of my favorite seasons, times of year, because there's all these overlapping holidays, right? There's spring, there's equinox, there's the season for intentional peace, there's Easter, and on the heels of that this year is Passover. And this is one of the years that I really resonate with all these different holidays coming from all these different faith traditions. And it kind of is reinforcing in a way, because I think collectively humanity feels that too and has felt since the beginning of time. Now today is Palm Sunday, right? And this marks Yeshua's journey to Jerusalem on a liberated ass or donkey. It's a very interesting story how they came to get this donkey in order for Yeshua to ride into Jerusalem. And it was the Near Eastern custom to cover the path, the ground before a revered person's travel, meaning in this case the Bible says the path was covered in cloaks and branches cut from trees, And so palm branches or palm fronds now became that term, and it really only appears in one of the Gospels as palms, and it was actually the last or the latest Gospel. And it's suspected that that's a Greco-Roman symbol rather than what would have been available at the time of Yeshua's travel into Jerusalem. Now, context is everything in understanding the Bible. And so to put this in a sequence, Yeshua was now fully astride in his ministry. He had healed the blind men by the road and was on his way to the temple to cast out the money changers. And as he says, and restore the temple as a house of prayer. So, and then once he got to the temple and he cast out the money changers, then he healed the blind and the lame in and around the temple, depending on which version of the story you're reading. And all of this angered the scribes and the Pharisees. It angered the establishment Jewish religion at the time. Now, in addition to being referred to as the Son of Man, which means you're a good guy, or the Son of God, which means you have godlike qualities, Yeshua's followers now started to use this term Hosanna. This is where he's being referred to as Hosanna. Now in Aramaic, the word is Hoshna, and means, in context, at times it means to save, to fix, to help. And then there's this Greco-Roman, again, interpretation, which is Savior. But more likely, Hosanna, Hoshna, in the Synoptic Gospels means healer in the context of Yeshua's ministry at that time. The other part about the healing and retaining the stories of healing has to do with giving Yeshua the credibility of a prophet. So a lot of this was included to try to bolster the case that he was the next Jewish prophet. And what Yeshua's ministry was to the mainstream was speaking truth to small-minded earthly powers. He was speaking truth to a humanville personality, and that's why there was such a violent reaction to what his ministry was. And at that point, Yeshua was calling them out and saying, you've lost the plot. What was spiritually true before has now kind of deteriorated into an incantation, a dance, and not really helping and healing. So being honest, John Lennon said, being honest may not get you many friends, but it will always get you the right ones. And this is definitely the case with Yeshua because he had a fairly limited following, right, at that time. Around about 100 people, as we would say in the Near Eastern context. But at this point, Yeshua was not caught up in these earth plane detractors and distractions. His works are clear, and they are coming more frequently and more easily to him. And remember that the primary context of spiritual revelation for the Hebrew people, for the Jewish teaching, is it was always in the context of the family or the tribe first, and the individual came second. Now, what Yeshua was doing was for the sake of the church. So if you look at his works at this time, even though he was healing individuals, he was building community and he was serving community. He was bringing the church up in his mind. And he was extending the Jewish teaching to now recognize the personal aspect of this theology, of this faith tradition. Because he was introducing this personal relationship to God, this personal connection to living spirit. So restoring the temple to a house of prayer, which was as much for the Hebrew people as it was for a way for Yeshua to bring in, to usher in, to reveal that light of God that is coming through and as everyone. Remember, the Bible is all metaphor. So if you notice, our current culture is metaphorically at this kind of a point of sort of casting out the money changers to restore what we all feel in our hearts is good and true. You know, and I think right here in our community, we're in the midst of a healing in consciousness. We are metaphorically restoring the health and the high functioning and the light of love of our community. And at the same time, we are healing the individual. We are calling forth that individual, that personal connection that each of us has, that personal expression, that conduit, that channel through which each of us shines our light. Maya Angelou says, nothing can dim the light which shines from within. And John Muir says, the sun shines not on you, but in you. So let your light shine. Let's turn together in prayer. So as I call to heart and mind right here and right now, that light that is within you that burns so brightly, so beautifully, and that is living God, that is living spirit, that is the joy, the compassion, the intelligence, the creativity, the health and well-being, the plenty of all good things. That is the good of God, the light of God, the love of God that is everywhere and within. It's within you, it surrounds you. It is within me, it surrounds me. That you and I are channels and portals, collectively and individually, through which the love and light of God shines like no other. So I speak my word today knowing that in the midst of any kind of challenge, of heartache, of heartbreak, of turmoil, there is a depth of strength within you that you call that deep within. And that deep responds with, yes, I'm here, it's here. That God is my source and supply in everything and all things in my life. And I access that depth of my being, of my goodness, in times of joy and times of strife. It is all a calling, that radical, that root, spiritual truth within you, within me. That deep calls on deep, and you have that deep inner strength. And that deep inner strength reveals, it activates, right here and right now, that light, that love, that joy. It's already so about you. It's already so about me. So I notice then as that joy and that love and that light comes alive, that we circulate God's good in ever greater ways, that we bless the world as we are blessed. And for that I give great thanks. Thanks for this answered prayer, this communion, this connection in spirit. And I just release it all. I just allow it to be. That the infinite creative, that living spirit says yes to more light, to more love, to more good. And that unfolds for you, that unfolds for me, that reveals, that's happening right here and right now. And together we say, and so it is. Amen.